Hello, everyone, and welcome to Advocating for the Environment webinar. Parks Victoria is celebrating National Volunteer Week this week, and this year's theme is the Changemakers. So we'll be sharing stories that can inspire everyone to advocate for the environment and make the world a better place. My name is Mel, and I am the State Education and Interpretation Coordinator at Parks Victoria, and I'm going to be facilitating the webinar this afternoon. Joining me are two inspiring change makers, Sione Funga and Emily Unity. And both of them are going to be sharing their perspectives on how we can advocate for the environment. Today, we'll be gathering in a digital space from many Aboriginal lands. So I'd like to take my time to pay respects to all traditional owners on the lands from which we are joining. I would also like to acknowledge, for me, I'm joining from Wadawurrung country in Western Victoria, and I'd like to pay my respect to Wadawurrung people, recognise their continued connection to land and waters, and acknowledge that their sovereignty was never ceded. Before we officially kick off, we have some housekeeping. So for those people who are not familiar with MS Teams, you will notice that there is some tabs across the top of your screen. We would like to ask you just to ensure you remain on mute throughout the presentation, just for everyone's clarity of audio and ability to hear. So you'll see the mute button as well at the top of the screen, your screen. And the presentation will also be recorded. So it's up to you. You may wish to turn your camera off for this reason, or you can leave your camera on, completely up to you. There will also be an opportunity for a Q&A session with the presenters after each of their presentations. So if you have any questions, if they arise through the presentation, we'd like to invite you to type these into the chat function throughout the presentation. Whenever you have those, you can do that. And you will notice that the chat box function is also at the top of your screen. If you have any IT issues, and we're hoping you don't, on the screen now, I think in a minute.
Okay.
This might be our first IT issue. Oh no, it's there. So you'll see that we've got one of our team members is on hand to do any troubleshooting. So Leanne Riggs is a very capable IT expert here. So you can give her a call on that 1300 number if you have any issues with your IT. And you can give her a text or you can call her. Okay, I think that might be the housekeeping. And have we started recording as well? Excellent. Okay, this is a little bit of an overview of the agenda that we've got today. So we are going to start with our first presenter today. So Sione, he's a Wiradjuri man and he's based in Northwest Victoria and he works in Parks Victoria's Managing Country Together team. So welcome Sione and over to you.
Thanks, Mel. Yeah, first off, I'd like to pay my respects to my elders, past and present, and any that may be online today. I would also like to pay my respects to the land we're all meeting on today. I'm on Latchi country, and I would also like to pay my respects to my ancestors. So my name is Sione Ikafunga. I'm a proud Wiradjuri man, and I grew up on Latchi and Tati country in Robinvale, Victoria. I'm a cultural landscapes advisor for uh, Parks Victoria under the Managing Country Together Directorate. I've been with Parks Victoria for roughly 2.5 years or a little bit longer. I have a background of corporate farming, as most people do, growing up in Robinvale, and joined Parks Victoria in 2020 as a project firefighter and as a park ranger, and now into Aboriginal heritage protection. The Managing Country Together Directorate is a growing team that provides strategic advice around best practices for protecting and preserving cultural heritage, with internal or external partners for major or minor developments or just day-to-day operations on the park's estate alongside traditional owners. So just a quick overview of the Parkes Estate. So the Parkes Estate comprises over 3,200 parks and reserves across the Parkes Estate, which equates to 4 million hectares or 18% of the state of land we manage, with 1%, 40,000 hectares of the state of the Parkes Estate has been subject to formal survey for cultural heritage, which includes roughly a total of 13 Aboriginal places registered with the Victorian Aboriginal Heritage Register. So in short terms, the VAR, as most people know it. So forgive me if I lose a few years here, but yeah, so if we break that down a little, 4 million hectares, we divide that by 40,000 hectares, you will have 100 lots of 40,000 hectares, with each lot representing 13,000 potential Aboriginal places. So 100 times 13,000 Aboriginal places, which gives us the possibility of 1.3 million of undiscovered Aboriginal places. And that's only on the Parkes Estate. Next slide, please. So why is it so important to protect and preserve cultural heritage? Well, there's many reasons why. Aboriginal people, so my people have occupied mainland Australia for at least 65,000 years. The oldest human ancestral remains were found at Lake Mungo in southwest New South Wales, known as Mungo Man, which his remains were dated from 42 to 46,000 years old. This site has been occupied by Aboriginal people from at least 47,000 years ago. So, and we Aboriginal people are the longest and oldest continuous living culture on Earth, and dating back to more than 65,000 years ago. So that's special in itself. And in that time, our ancestors have left evidence behind on how we lived, what we ate, tools we made and used, and special ceremonial places and places of burials where our ancestors were laid to rest into the dream time. And these special places are still here today. Next slide, please. So with the world changing rapidly, 4 million hectares or 80% of the state, as mentioned earlier, these places represent the best of Victoria's nature, wildlife, and what's left of the natural and cultural landscapes. Because of the past uses of land now managed by Parks Victoria, there remains an especially high concentration of Aboriginal cultural heritage values on the Parks Estate. Some people may think, when we're referring to cultural heritage protection, some may think it's an artifact or a scar tree or a midden site. Well, it's all of that and so much more. It's the native trees, plants, wildlife, water, fire, all these untouched landscapes across Australia is a cultural place to my people. And I have been blessed that I have a voice given to me from my elders and elders past and present, and to help protect and preserve our cultural values. So I think the next one, I think we've got a short video I'd like you to watch. So yeah, enjoy.
Sorry, I forgot to click one button. So let me just click this one button and then I will, the sound will come back on. Otherwise you'd have the video and no sound. Can everyone hear that?
When you think the bodies out there just laying there, we felt so helpless and so ashamed of ourselves to walk out and think we didn't even want to talk about it.
The scale of ancestral remain places in the northwest is huge. Like we've got burial sites on main roadways into, to the river country where the public go and visit the river and do their water sports and stuff. We've got burial sites in the dune systems. We've got burial sites that are heavily affected by rabbits, pigs, still cattle, sheep. The population of Aboriginal people back here, thousands and thousands of years ago was huge, because you've got all the river systems. You've got the Murray-Darling, you've got the Murray River, you've got the Anna Branch, you've got the Warkall River, you've got the Murrumbidgee. So there was a constant water source here that filled the lakes, creeks. So there was plenty of fish, there was plenty of mussels, there was plenty of tucker for the Aboriginal people to eat. So the population exploded, and we've got to respect these areas and get something done about it. Work with the traditional owners and give it the respect that it deserves. Because this is a living culture that's been here for thousands and thousands of years. We need to respect it. One of the most important sites that we've done just recently, B16, that site's been uncovered like that for as long as I can remember, and I've visited that site many, many times.
Like I said, when we got help from the SA Parks Foundation, we were very grateful and fruitful for what they've done and what they've given the money for us to bury these old people up. Because when we went back to do the job, we felt so proud, and you felt that cry when you walked in there, because you know you were going in there to actually help them and put these people at rest, save them laying there and just roaming around like lost spirits. We laid them down to rest now. They're resting in peace now.
I've been going to the site for years and years and years, and seeing exposed remains in that condition with traditional owners, and to walk away with that feeling of, like you can't do anything. And all of a sudden, People and Parks Foundation come along last year and provided their help. And I just can't thank them enough. Like in the last, I think it was about 6 weeks ago, we were actually able to cover up the remains with traditional owners. And the work that was done there was fantastic. And to walk away, just to see the look on the traditional owners' faces was, I'm gobsmacked. It's speechless, actually. Get a bit emotional about it. But there's so much more work to be done out there as well. This is just one site of many in the northwest.
Yeah, I'm Ivan Robertson from Keira Station in Northwest Victoria. I own the property which the B16 burials are situated on. For many years, probably 30 odd years, I've been coming here and looking at these burials and watched them disappear over the years. Over that time, there's been people come and go, promises made, but never really has anything like what's been done, which I think is fantastic. We are finally starting to, I suppose, take care of the remains and the burials in the area. It's been a long time coming.
This was a huge area of significance, B16, because it had the ceremonial site, it had the skeletal remains in the sand dunes going back out to the river, and to actually see that they were finally coming at rest was peaceful for me.
I'd like to thank traditional owners for allowing me to work with them on their important sites. It means so much to me as an Aboriginal person as well.
Where are you, my children of this land, as we lay exposed above the ground, at the mercy of the rain, wind and sand, and the heat of the glaring sun, bleaching our bones whiter than white? Children of this land, can you hear the whispers of your ancestors as you walk amongst their bones, asking you to bury them deep within the womb of our spiritual mother of the land, where they will find peace within themselves, as you will, as I did? Where are you, my children of this land?
Thanks for that. I hope you enjoyed that video as much as I did when I first saw it. It makes you a bit emotional. Makes me a bit emotional, but yeah. So that's why I want to talk about a bit of positive influence. So some of the people, some of the men on that video, you know, have had a big influence on me. So everyone online today can influence someone, you know, in a positive way. You know, whether it's preserving certain individual native plants, trees, or animals, all of these things are a part of our cultural heritage. And I thank you for all your contribution if you have done so. I'm lucky enough to be a part of a deadly team that's made up of Aboriginal staff and non-Aboriginal staff as well, and that's very passionate about protection of our cultural values across the Parkes Estate. And that's the Managing Country Together team. But when I sat down and I had to think about, you know, why am I sitting here in front of you today? I'm advocating for the protection of preserving of our cultural heritage. I think of my elders, past and present, but yeah, I really think about the Northwest Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Protection Team. You know, Damien Jackson, Jason Bowden, and Darren Brown. This team has been a major influence on me, and everyone at Parkes Victoria plays a special role in protecting and preserving works across the state. But the work that this team does is beyond special. With the works of protecting our ancestors from pest animals such as wild pigs, goats, foxes, as you've seen on the video, and mostly rabbits. These pests mostly find a home where our ancestors are laid to rest. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's a bit emotional about it, but and this team restores our ancestors' place of rest and helps our old people continue their journey. So I thank them for that, and it's very confronting work that they do, but it's something they're very passionate about, and they do it day in and day out, and they are the reason that I am sitting here before you today. So I encourage you all today to really take it all in. We are all part of something special. And when you are all working or visiting a beautiful country on Parkes Victoria's estate, stop in and visit the local Parkes office. And, you know, there's always someone there that can help build your knowledge around cultural heritage or what may interest you out in the bush. Thank you.
Thank you, Sione.
Mm.
So getting a few claps there. People are also finding the clap function.
Mm.
I would like to invite, if anyone has any questions, please type them in the chat box, and we can pose those questions to Sione. But Sione, I suppose I might start with a question that I have about your work, and I was wondering if you could talk about maybe what's the most rewarding parts of your work, or what's the parts that you find personally the most rewarding?
Yeah, I think the most rewarding is as I mentioned earlier, the team, the Cultural Heritage Protection Team in the Northwest, the work they do it's just a special feeling you get, especially when you're out there and you see the old people exposed, and when you feel like you've covered those places up and put them back to rest, that's the most rewarding for me. And you know that, you know, as Uncle Chinnawan mentioned earlier there in the video, you know, they're resting now, and that's just the best feeling you can get for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like your team is very important to you as well, like working with them and collaborating.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're big part of what I'm doing. So
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So then the opposite to that, Sione, do you think you could talk a little bit about what you think the biggest challenges are in this space or in your work? What
Well,
do you find challenging?
yeah, there's a lot of challenges. There's lots of challenges across the state, but it's probably the lack of knowledge, for people around cultural heritage and what it means to my people and to me, and yeah, and I'm really love sharing those stories, and as them fellas did with me, and my aunties and uncles, and yeah, and I think that's the challenge, is just the unknown. And when you know especially on Parks Estate, when you get things thrown at you, whether you're trying to stop things. I'm definitely not trying to stop. I want everyone to enjoy the bush. I want everyone to enjoy this beautiful country. But there is some things out there that we don't want to get lost either, and that's our heritage. So long before 1788, they were land managers. So the best of the land managers, and I just want to sort of be a big part of that now, and try and preserve what we got left. Yeah, that's
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on this. It's been really insightful. Auntie Wendy looks like she's sharing some love for how fantastic your MCT team is as well. Thank you, Auntie Wendy. If we may have some time at the end, so if the people joining us think of a question that you would like to ask Sione, please add it to the chat box, and we'll see whether we can get to that later on in the session. But for now, thank you, Sione, for sharing your perspective and your knowledge today. We're going to now introduce our second presenter. So our next presenter is Emily Unity. They are a young person who has recently undertaken a nature-based project as part of Parks Victoria's Youth Volunteering for Nature Fund. So welcome, Emily, and over to you.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for having me here today, and thanks for coming. I'm just going to try to share my screen, so let me know if this comes up for you. Cool, awesome. Thank you for the thumbs up. So hey everyone, my name's Emily. My pronouns are they, them. I'm absolutely thrilled to speak with you about the outcome of the Volunteering for Youth Nature Fund, which is my book Ozigami, which is launching today, and it feels very surreal. But before I begin about that, I'd like to acknowledge and honor all the traditional custodians of country. I acknowledge that I was also born on the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people over in WA, but currently live and work on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to the elders of the past and present, and extend that respects to any amazing elders in the team and in the room here today, including Sione and Wendy and the NCT team. I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you again for being here. I'm honestly just really grateful to have the opportunity to speak about this. I really can't believe this is happening, but I'd love to show you a bit about the book and how you can get your own free copy as well. So in my quick presentation today, I'm going to speak about 4 key things. So first is about me, why I'm really passionate about this and why I created Ozigami and what it is. The second is honoring country, why I've incorporated Indigenous language. And third, the book preview, where I'll show you the first ever book preview, but very quickly. And then last, a thanks. So where I share my thanks to everyone that made this incredibly possible. So about me. I've always loved animals. Growing up, I spent my free time basically anywhere near them, begging my parents to go visit them, drawing them, reading them. But my favorite ones are always the Australian ones. They were the most unique, and I loved that I could visit them in real life. And there's a picture of 4-year-old me with a quokka. And as I grew up, I very sadly learned that many of the animals that I loved could disappear forever. And I was shocked that many of the Australian animals that I loved were classified as endangered or at risk, which meant that future young people may never get the chance to see them. I also learned that I was from a refugee and migrant family and how I directly have benefited from colonization and how much colonization has actually impacted the endangerment of Australian animals. And I recognize the importance of everyone working towards reconciliation. So as I grew older, I started to work in different advocacy spaces and I learned about the power of raising awareness and the importance of bringing people together to create change. So throughout that, I created Ozigami because I believe that everyone can do something to protect our environment and our endangered animals and protect country. And no matter who you are or where you come from, I think that there's always something that we can do to learn about our endangered animals and their Indigenous heritages and how we can protect them together. So speaking of Indigenous heritages, to honour country and First Peoples across Australia, I've tried to use the Indigenous names of the endangered animals. And I recognise that for most Aboriginal people, the names of animals is much more than a label, so dissimilar to colonising labels. It carries history and stories and a sense of place and a right to belong. And I believe that by incorporating these names, we pay honour and respect the deep connection between the animals and the traditional custodians of the land. I think every time that I volunteered within these sorts of spaces, I've always talked about protecting the environment, but also acknowledge the effects of colonization on the environment as well, particularly with regards to not just the loss of native wildlife, but also the habitats and the histories and the stories and traditional hunting and gathering practices and cultural beliefs as well that have been disrupted and lost along the way. And I also want to acknowledge the effects of climate change on connection to the country, including the loss of land and resources. And so I think that Indigenous wisdom plays a vital role in protecting our environment. And so a tiny hope for the book is that it helps honor First Nations people and language and history and expertise. And I'm trying to do that through acknowledging that these are the original names of the animals and they should not be lost throughout different forms of translation or different means. So now I'm going to give you a very, very short preview of the book. I'm only going to go through some of the pages and very, very quickly so you can have an initial idea of what Ozigami is about, but you can always read more on your own if you get your free copy as well. So one of the first pages in the book is a little welcome note from me to the reader, which includes some of the information that I've just shared with you as well, and why this is so important to me. And the next page is the contents page, which has an overview of the endangered animals that are featured. And these are from all across our beautiful country and are wonderfully unique, but very sadly endangered. Each chapter is structured the same. So they each highlight 3 interesting facts about the animal, 3 of their biggest threats, 3 things you can do to protect them. And of course, the origami instructions, which is where the pun Ozigami comes from, on how to make your own paper animal. And since tonight is a very quick preview, I don't want to reveal everything all at once. I'm just going to give you a preview of one of the first animals and then a brief overview of the remainder of the book, so that leaves a little bit of mystery. So the first animal is the baradang, also known as the koala. So the first page has 3 interesting facts, which includes the fact that they are very sleepy and sleep over 20 hours a day to save energy for digesting their eucalyptus leaves, which also happen to be poisonous to them. And then there's also 3 biggest threats, which includes the fact that around 80% of their natural habitat has been destroyed because of human urban development. And then 3 things you can do, which includes options such as planting more trees for the habitat, driving slowly at night to ensure you look out for any of them that may be on the ground, moving from tree to tree, as well as reporting any injured ones that you come across. And then over the page, there's the origami instructions on how to make your own little paper version of the animal. I spent far too long doing this and had a lot of Zoom meetings where I was just folding paper in front of me for unexplained reasons. So I'm really glad that these have come together. So now that I've given an overview of one of the chapters, here's a very brief overview of the remainder of the book. And forewarning, it may be overwhelming because it's just a lot of content. So the remaining content chapters showcase the other animals before ending in a final thank you message from me, as well as some additional details about how I've self-published it to make sure that the book design and printing distribution is also environmentally conscious. So this includes ways that the printing is only used recycled paper from forests that guarantees the respectful treatment of Indigenous peoples, and using shipping only that uses biodegradable and recyclable packaging. And that is the quickest overview possible of this book. In wrapping up, I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone who made this possible. I'm getting emotional because this means a lot to me. Sorry, I'm autistic, so I cry a lot. Whilst I authored and illustrated and published it, I've been supported by so many people that made this all come together in a way that's at all coherent. And in particular, I would like to thank Darcy Graham, who is a proud Wiradjuri person and the research officer at the Australia Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies, who generously provided the Wiradjuri names of all the included Australian endangered animals. And of course, I would like to thank Parks Victoria and the Victorian government, who have not only put together this webinar, but also funded the printing of the first 100 copies of Ozigami through the Youth Volunteering for Nature Fund. And this is why I'm allowed and privileged to donate them to anyone interested, whether that be individuals, communities, organizations that would like to help protect our endangered animals. So yes, in closing, I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I feel so privileged and honestly very in disbelief to be talking about this. It feels very surreal. If you or anyone that you'd like to know that would like their own free copy, you can get one by visiting the website, which is on the top right if you tilt your head. So it's ozigami.com. So I sincerely hope that you enjoy it and it inspires you to take action. I really believe that even the smallest of actions can make a really big difference. So thank you so much.
Well done, Emily. That is such an impressive project. It's really thoughtful, and yeah, you've considered so many different angles to caring for the environment and people in the environment too. So very impressive. I'm sure I speak on behalf of a lot of people online. Again, people joining us, please feel free to type in a question if you have a question for Emily. I suppose I will kick it off. Again, you're getting some love from Auntie Wendy there in the chat box. Thank you, Auntie Wendy. So Emily, I'm just wondering, coming back to this idea of change makers. Obviously, you and Sione both have a role in being change makers yourself, but I'm wondering if you were thinking about, when you were developing your book, perhaps about how you might be inspiring the reader to be a change maker. Was that part of the design? And maybe could you talk a little bit about how you were thinking about how you might have wanted to inspire others to make a change?
Yeah, of course. So to be quite honest with you, like the label or the word like change maker, just like it sends like cognitive dissonance between me, and I don't identify as one, I don't think. I feel like it's just something that's just kind of happened, and I think that everyone is in their own way, and that's something that I really wanted to hope from this book, is that my experience of volunteering for nature has been through different levels of privilege, particularly when I was younger, being able-bodied to go and plant trees, or having the financial privilege to actually go and travel to locations in which you could actually volunteer. And I think particularly through my other types of advocacy within mental health especially, I've been really curious and compassionate about the different access barriers to accessing advocacy opportunities, where you not only feel like change is possible, but you can also contribute to that change. And so I really wanted to make a resource that is about protecting the environment, but also uses a kind of creative lens that also allows for different people to contribute in their own ways, from the safety of their own homes or in their different communities. Because I think that sort of accessibility barrier is something that was really difficult for me to kind of process and understand about environmental volunteering, especially. So I hope that this kind of fun and easy resource kind of empowers people to understand that we each can be quote unquote change makers. And we can do even the tiniest actions. There's one bit in the book I didn't go over, that's like there's the mountain pygmy possum, which is this tiny, tiny little animal, and there's so few of them. And one of the biggest like dietary needs throughout the year is that they rely on these moths that migrate all the way up from the south. And because of human light pollution, they've been getting distracted, and so the possums are dying because they don't get the moths. And so like something that's in there as a tip is just turn off your lights outside at night. And I think that that's just such a small thing that you can do that really contributes to a much bigger change. And so I hope that it kind of not only reduces barriers to people volunteering and getting involved in protecting nature, but also reframes that it doesn't have to be this big thing of putting on gloves, going out to where trees aren't currently existing and putting trees there. It's also like really small things that you can do within your current day in life of like even just having conversations and raising more awareness and celebrating days that have just passed, like the Northern Hairy Nose Wombat Day was like this week, which is very weird and wonderful. So I think that, yeah, it's just about reducing barriers and kind of challenging that stigma within us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's a really good point that you say about it doesn't have to be a big, glamorous kind of action. It can be just all those incremental little actions that can help along the way, whether you're raising awareness, like Sione with the cultural heritage and just planting that seed in people's minds about things that they could be thinking about or looking out for or caring for, to, you know, much bigger kind of getting your hands dirty type of actions too with volunteering. So thank you. I really appreciate both of your perspectives. And yes, there's a lot of love for your creativity, Emily. So in the chat box, there is one question there. It looks like someone is Bridget is asking about where they might be able to get a copy of your book. Did you want to just talk about where people can access that?
Yeah, sure. And so I'm a very stubborn person for very silly reasons. But I am refusing to sell the book. So I'm only giving it away for free in that sense. So people, if you would like to paying for shipping is one thing, that'd be really lovely. But if I'm offering people the option to donate, because I've had some very insistent friends and colleagues definitely want to donate. So any of the profits will be used to print more of the books, which can also be given away. But yeah, I'm putting a cap of like about 10, but you're welcome to get up to 10 books within one order and just pay for one round of shipping. I highly encourage you to share it with anyone that you think would be interested, really wanted to engage with people that, I don't know, think that volunteering may not be for them or think that environmental volunteering might be too hard, because I think I was definitely at that point a while ago, and this would have helped younger me.
Great. And I've noticed you've also put the a link there as well in the chat box.
So sorry. Yeah, it's on that link. You can get the books via that link. I totally missed that.
Great. That's fine. So I'm just checking. We haven't covered any. There's no one asking a urgent question that we haven't covered. Is there anything else, I suppose, from Emily or Sione that you want to say before we wrap up today?
Yeah, just thanks for everyone joining today. It means a lot to me, and I hope I've planted a little seed there somewhere. But no, thank you very much.
Fantastic, thank you. Emily, did you have any last words?
No, nothing other than I just feel like a total imposter next to Sione. I know that's not a comparison sort of thing, but I think that it's really important that, particularly when it comes to volunteering to protect country as well, it's definitely not just on First Nations people. I do want to emphasize that is that I wanted to include the names in a way that wasn't tokenistic, and I went through a lot of different consultations within that. And I think that that's like a small way that we can kind of incorporate that. So I hope that maybe incorporating more First Nations languages, wherever that might be, this is just Wiradjuri language, that could be something that can be taken out of this space as well as an idea for other sorts of resources. And so just asking people about the actual original names of places or animals or things. So I think that that's a nice, like, small little thing that would be good to preserve language as well. But yeah, fully, I'm not First Nations by any means, and really want to just like point out that I think we all have a responsibility in not only protecting the environment, but also reconciling things and closing the gap.
Absolutely, very well said. Okay, so yeah, once again, thank you so much for your time today, Sione and Emily, and thank you everyone else for joining us today. If you do want to share or rewatch this presentation, we will be uploading it to Parks Victoria's YouTube channel. So you can catch it there, or you can share it with people that you know might have missed out on the conversation. And as always, please stay tuned for volunteer opportunities on Park Connect and our website. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in contact with the volunteer team. You can email them at volunteer@parks.vic.gov.au. And also, of course, in National Volunteer Week, we would like to say a very big thanks to all of the volunteers who provide their time, their skills and their expertise to help protect and conserve our precious places. And thank you for joining in the conversation this week. And you'll see Leanne has got one last slide up there about where you might be able to find some extra details of the things that you've heard about today. So thank you very much, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.